My mother had a small patch of red clover behind the wash line, just where the afternoon sun laid itself down warm on the grass. I remember her walking out there with her apron gathered in one hand, picking the pink blossoms before supper, careful not to bruise them. She would bring them inside and spread them on a clean flour sack towel near the window. There was a woman from our district who had come by that day. She was not sick in the way a person takes to bed, but she was weary in a way I did not understand then. Her face was flushed, and she kept pressing her hand against the back of her neck. My mother did not make a fuss over her. She simply put water on the stove. By evening, the kitchen smelled faintly sweet, like hay and flowers after rain. The woman sat at our table with both hands wrapped around a cup of tea, and my mother said something I have never forgotten. The body changes like the seasons do. We do not scold the season, we help it turn. That was the first time I understood that the garden was not only for feeding the family. Sometimes it was for helping a woman feel like herself again. Today I want to share what women in our community have long reached for when their bodies begin changing in that middle season of life. The time when sleep grows lighter, warmth rises suddenly in the face and chest, tempers feel closer to the surface, and a woman may wonder why her own body has become unfamiliar to her. Outside our community, many women are given a hormone prescription for these years, and I understand why. Some women need that help, and that is between her and the doctor who knows her well. I do not speak against it. But before many plain women ever had easy access to such things, they had the garden, the pantry, and the steady teaching of mothers and grandmothers. The remedies I am sharing are not meant to replace medical care. They are simply the old supports Amish women have used to help with the change of life, especially when the body feels hot, restless, dry, or unsettled. And the one my mother trusted most was not bitter, expensive, or difficult. It was a flower most people walk past without even seeing. In our community, women did not learn these things from books first. They learned them by standing beside older women in kitchens, gardens, washhouses, and bedrooms where babies had been born and fevers had been watched through the night. A woman did not always have a doctor nearby. Sometimes the horse was needed elsewhere. Sometimes the roads were bad. Sometimes a concern was not urgent enough to call for outside help, but it was heavy enough that a woman needed care. That is where the old knowledge grew. The change of life was one of those things women spoke of softly. They did not gather in public and announce their troubles. But one woman would say to another, "I have not slept well in weeks," or, "I feel heat come over me like I am standing too close to the cook stove," or, "I cry over nothing and then feel ashamed of it." And an older woman would nod because she knew. The first garden help I want to tell you about is red clover blossom tea. My mother always called red clover a gentle plant for women. In our community, it was gathered when the blossoms were fresh and bright, usually before the heat of the day had made them tired. We never used flowers from the roadside where dust and horses passed. We picked from the clean patch near the garden, where we knew what had touched the soil. To make the tea the way my mother did, take 1 heaping tablespoon of dried red clover blossoms for 1 large cup of hot water. If you are using fresh blossoms, use 2 tablespoons because fresh herbs carry more water in them. Pour boiling water over the blossoms, cover the cup with a saucer, and let it sit for 15 minutes. Do not rush that steeping. The covering matters, my grandmother always said, because the goodness of the plant rises with the steam, and you do not want it wandering off into the kitchen air. Strain it and drink it warm in the evening, or in the late afternoon before the house becomes busy with supper. Some women in our community took 1 cup a day for several weeks when the hot spells and unsettled feelings came often. In my experience, red clover is not a forceful herb. It does not push the body. It seems to sit beside it. There are women who should be careful with red clover, especially if they have had hormone-sensitive illness, take blood thinners, or are already using hormone medicine. That is the sort of thing to speak over with a healthcare provider. The old women knew caution too. They never believed every plant was right for every person. But when it fit a woman well, red clover was often the first cup offered. The second help from the garden is sage. Most people think of sage with chicken or stuffing, but Amish women have long kept it for sweating and sudden heat. My grandmother had a sage plant near the back step, woody at the bottom and silver green on top. She would run her fingers along the leaves when she passed, and the smell would cling to her hand. Sage is stronger than red clover, and we used it with more care. For the kind of warm flushing that comes up suddenly, especially at night, my mother would make a light sage tea. Not strong, not bitter enough to make the mouth draw tight. Use 1 teaspoon of dried sage or 2 fresh leaves for 1 cup of hot water. Pour the water over it, cover it, and steep for 7 to 10 minutes. Then strain it. She would often tell a woman to drink half a cup in the evening for a few nights and see how her body answered. That was important. See how your body answers. In our community, sage was also used as a foot wash when the nights were restless and hot. This is something I still like because it is simple and kind. Take a small handful of fresh sage leaves, or 1 tablespoon dried, and steep it in a quart of hot water for 15 minutes. Pour that into a basin and add enough warm water so your feet can rest comfortably. Soak your feet for 10 minutes before bed, then dry them well and put on clean cotton stockings. There is something about caring for the feet that tells the whole body the day is finished. After the second remedy, I want you to remember this. Not all garden medicine is in the teacup. Some of it is in what we eat every morning before we ever think to call it a remedy. That brings me to flaxseed. My mother kept flaxseed in a glass jar with a tight lid. She did not buy it already ground if she could help it, because once it is ground, it does not stay fresh as long. She would grind a small amount in the morning, just enough for that day or the next. The way she used it was simple. Take 1 tablespoon of freshly ground flaxseed and stir it into warm oatmeal, applesauce, or thick yogurt. Do this once a day and drink a full glass of water with it. If your body is not used to flax, begin with 1 teaspoon for several days, then work up slowly. Many women forget that during the change of life, digestion matters more than they think. When the bowels slow, everything feels heavier. The head, the mood, the skin, even sleep can feel troubled. In our community, flax was not spoken of as a hormone remedy the way people speak today. It was simply one of the foods women leaned on to keep the inside moving gently and the body less dry. Sometimes plain things stay because they work quietly. The fourth garden help is raspberry leaf. For raspberry leaf tea, use 1 tablespoon dried leaf to 1 cup of boiling water. Cover and steep for 10 to 15 minutes, then strain. Some women drank 1 cup in the morning, especially when they felt dragged down, crampy, or loose in their middle during the irregular years. My mother sometimes mixed raspberry leaf and nettle together, equal parts, when a woman seemed worn thin. 1 teaspoon of each in a large mug, steeped covered for 15 minutes, made a green, earthy tea that was not fancy, but felt nourishing. Nettle was another plant we respected. For nettle tea, use 1 tablespoon dried nettle leaf to a cup of hot water, cover it, and let it steep at least 15 minutes. Some women steeped it longer, even in a jar for several hours, but I find the shorter steeping is easier for most. The last help I want to share is not one plant, but a small evening practice using garden herbs for calm. Because when a woman's body is changing, it is not only heat that troubles her. It is the mind waking at 2 in the morning. It is the heart beating hard over nothing. It is lying beside a sleeping husband and feeling alone inside your own skin. My mother made what she called a settling cup. For a settling cup, take 1 tablespoon dried lemon balm, or a small handful fresh, and 1 teaspoon dried chamomile. Pour over 1 large cup of boiling water. Cover it and let it steep for 10 minutes. Strain it and drink it slowly about an hour before bed. Do not carry the cup around while finishing chores. Sit down with it. That was part of the remedy. I know that life is different outside our community. A woman may have work waiting on a glowing screen. She may have appointments, messages, bills, and a body that seems to demand answers faster than the garden can give them. I understand why a prescription can feel like a rescue. Sometimes it may be the right help. There is no shame in needing help. But I do think many women have been taught to mistrust anything slow. They are told that if relief does not arrive quickly, then it must not be real. The old women did not think that way. And sometimes that is enough to remind a woman that her body is not betraying her. It is changing, and it can be cared for. I still think about that woman at our kitchen table, the one with her hand pressed against the back of her neck. I remember how she looked when she first came in, embarrassed by the heat rising in her face, tired from nights that would not give her rest. My mother did not make her feel foolish. She did not speak as though she had failed somehow by growing older. She placed the red clover tea in front of her and sat down beside her while the room grew quiet. That is the part I remember most, not only the tea, the sitting beside. A few weeks later, the woman came again. She brought back the jar my mother had filled for her, washed clean and wrapped in a towel. She said the nights were still not perfect, but they were kinder. She said she had begun walking to the garden in the evening just to see what was blooming. My mother smiled at that. Because once a woman begins noticing the garden again, she has already begun coming back to herself. If your body is in that changing time, be gentle with it. Ask questions. Seek wise help when you need it. And do not forget that some of the old supports may still be waiting close to the door, quiet as ever. A woman does not have to be ashamed of changing seasons. She only needs to be cared for through them. If something here was useful to you, I am glad. These are the kinds of things the women before us passed from hand to hand, often without writing them down, and I believe they are worth remembering. If you want to be here when I share it, you are welcome to stay. Until next time, Miriam.